Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's wonderful to have you here with us today. And as we kick off this session, be sure to take notes because you are going to learn a lot during the short time that we have together. And if you don't already, why don't you get yourself a glass of water or get a hot beverage and just settle in for a moment. This is your time. You've made this commitment to yourself, and we're happy that you're here. As a professional coach to business owners, leaders, and creatives, one of the things that I've noticed when I'm coaching clients and they come to me with a problem or a challenge is they don't ever say to me, I want to improve my resilience. I want to become more resilient. It's not something that my clients think about in that terms. Yet at the heart of the matter, the reality is that resilience is one of those essential ingredients to discover the path to freedom. And so I work with them on that. And today I'm super pumped because my guest and I are going to share some mini trainings with you on this hot topic of trailblazing resilience, a woman's path to freedom. And right now, I would like to introduce you to Kandace Johnson, known as Coach K-Joy. Kandace is a career public speaking and a self-esteem coach. Welcome, Kandace. I'm thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you, Jen, and I'm equally as excited to be here. Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to Jen DeTracey. She is an Elevate result coach and strategist for small business owners, creatives, and leaders. She's the founder of Lift Strategies Incorporated.
Thanks, Kandace. And today I'm going to be guiding you through my signature flow process, at least the first two steps in it to build resilience towards your path to freedom. And Kandace, I'm super excited about this, is going to share her PIC squared model, which is perseverance, integrity, consistency, and celebration. So Kandace, would you be willing to share about what resilience is from your perspective?
Indeed. Thank you. I would simply say when I think of resilience, I think of honestly just recovering from the unexpected, but also keeping that with a loose timeline. As things happen in our lives, many times, it can be small things that happen or larger things, or what we consider maybe mid-sized things that occur that we're trying to recover from. And all of us recover from things so differently. In the same path of that, we're also trying to make sure we're taking care of our families and our careers and our other loved ones we're responsible for. So I would say, for me, it's simply recovering from the unexpected, really loose timeline because it's so different for everyone depending on what that specific situation is, and giving ourselves some grace for sure through that process.
Appreciate that. And I love how you bring up about we have to look at our whole life, right? Because we're more than one person. We play many roles in life, and that
Very true.
impacts our ability to bounce back. And when it comes to the small things, it's so much easier, as you'd mentioned. So why don't we go into what you have to share today, Kandace? I'm super excited to hear about it.
All right, so I simply want to start off with just a little bit of a snippet of a story, sharing a little bit of a time in my life where my career and life challenges intersected and sent me down a little bit of a winding road, ladies. I had been a bodily injury adjuster for 4 to 5 years and had just been offered an opportunity to move to Jacksonville, Florida from Dallas, Texas to become an inside property adjuster. I was simply stoked to be learning the other side of insurance. When I was in my first week of training, I received a call that my father was being rushed to ER and was unconscious. I simply, of course, got a hold of my trainers. I ran home to pack, and I called family pretty frantically, asking for help to search for flights and tickets home, as I needed some help while I was heading to the airport. After arriving home, my father unfortunately was still unconscious. The doctor started running some brain scans to confirm if there was still brain activity, and thank goodness there was. Definitely something I was thankful for. However, after being home for about a week and him becoming conscious, he was still unable to speak, although he became conscious. I was going to need to head back to Florida. So within a few weeks, meaning around the end of that same month, I received a call advising that my father was unconscious and they were working on resuscitating him. As I scrambled again to head home and pack, work on planning to get back to Texas to see my father, he passed prior to me making it home for the second time. As he was one of my biggest supporters, and me being in my early 30s, I really struggled with no longer having the excitement of starting a new job in a new location while grieving and everything else in between. After the funeral, I was trying really hard to figure out how life continues, goes on in the days working while in between, while working through the grief and while being away from family and regaining focus. After about a week and a half of being home for the funeral, my boss simply advised he was open to giving me as much time as I needed to grieve and help get things in order. However, his boss had a different vision and advised he needed to call me back and let me know I would need to head back to Florida for work to continue training or my position would be in jeopardy. I was floored, I was devastated, and in the midst of it all, I still needed a way to push forward. I found myself really sitting during some time and thinking and pondering how I was actually going to do that and be successful in my new role. I would find myself asking myself, what would my dad say to me in these times? He always told me to make time to enjoy life and try new things. So as I headed back to Florida and restarted training, I really struggled to get down the material, y'all. I was one that was used to being a go-getter, ahead of the curve, but it was simply different now. However, I realized in order to get through the process, I was going to need to do a few things if I was going to persevere forward. First thing was going to be accepting where I was. I needed to take time to accept that I was in the middle of grieving and in the middle of new beginnings for a new position and try to find a way to work through that. And this was my first time working through that type of environment. And all in the midst of while I was accepting where I was, being very mindful of getting into a healthy headspace. It's very tough when you're in a new location. You don't know one single soul outside of your training class, which you're starting to get to know them, right? In the midst of being there a few weeks. And then also picking up a new position. One of the things I had to come to reality with was figuring out what would help me move into a better headspace. Eventually, I found that through counseling, journaling, and of course, that's going to vary from person to person. But I must say, as it turns out, I found my solitude simply sitting on the beach. Not sure about you all, but there's a sense of calmness and peace that comes with doing that. Not only enjoying some amazing tunes along the way through my grief and writing, but I found myself at times laughing and just remembering the memories. While I was still struggling to persevere forward, few things came to mind. A new thing was born for me. I realized I felt like I was feeling really led to be passionate and share about my voice and just different things that I'd gone through my own fight of life, right? Really struggling to get forward to that freedom path. I didn't even know what that looked like at the time, to be honest. But I will say, in this shift, many of us find ourselves reevaluating who we are at our core and our foundation. And I have to say, when I was advised I had to come back to work or my job would be in jeopardy, I had an option in how I responded. I really had to think about who I was at my foundation, as life's challenges don't spare us through the journey. As we go into discussing the second part of this model, which is integrity, I really want to share my vision of integrity. For me, integrity really looks like what it takes to anchor a nice sized tree. And when I think of that, I really think of the roots that you don't see a lot of times, right? Because they're underground. They're helping to do multiple things. They're stabilizing the tree. They're helping feed the tree. They're helping so many areas that then branch out from those roots. But ladies, when I say things are going to happen in our life that we just have no control over and we have to find a way to press forward to that one path we're going for, integrity is in the middle of that all. Not only do we have to agree to persevere, the integrity piece comes into play on multiple things. When I've done research in the past on integrity and really thought about how that helps us in this fight forward or our path to freedom, there's so many definitions of integrity and how that comes into play. But really understanding who you are and that foundational piece, for me, I was able to find an inner peace that comes with knowing and understanding my value and owning it. And I truly believe that would be for anyone else out there. There's a few simple quotes I'll share from two women that have had amazing careers. One, Angela Merkel, who's a former chancellor of Germany, she quoted, integrity as a woman of integrity is one who treats others with respect and fairness, no matter their status or background. Oprah Winfrey also put out a quote that said, "A woman of integrity is one who is true to herself and inspires others to do the same." Although there's many different definitions of what integrity looks like, I want to encourage you to evaluate this from time to time. It really simply just feeds into those roots that we just discussed, and it really does shine through you when you allow yourself that inner peace that comes with knowing your value and truly owning it. While evaluating that and walking through your path of life, we tend to find ourselves really doing things that are consistent and common to us in life. So that third part of this model is consistency. And what I want you to think of when you think of consistency is multiple things, right? When we find things that are consistent in our lives, there's normally reasons for that. They are things that help anchor us, they help root us into the ground or into our foundation. But for me, I really look at that as the glue to building our very own yellow brick road to the path of freedom. I will say throughout my entire career, from climbing the ladder from data entry up to director level, and then promoting, and getting into my own businesses, consistency has been what's really been able to move that needle. I've also looked into different quotes and things around that, and I will leave you with one quote on consistency. One author that I adore and follow that I found at a women's conference many years ago, she wrote a book called Life Coaching for Successful Women. And one of the quotes that I loved that she shared was, "Consistency is one of the most important things for our ingredients to success." That I've also found that to be one of the largest values with being able to move the needle on my career, not only finding a way to persevere forward and keeping my integrity in check, but also evaluating that along the way has given me quite a bit of breathing room at times when life tends to wind me down a road that's a different direction than I'd rather go. Keep in mind your own path, right? As we're trailblazing forward, and I say we because we really are in this all together, I want you to just remember that the last part of this model is really to take time to celebrate. I always tell my teams, we will make time to celebrate small victories on the road to large ones. Don't wait. I just really want you to hear me when I say this. Please don't wait until you've completed something or when the goals are all completed. Because what we tend to find later, or at least what I have in my own life and other women that I've spoken to, years go by and then you realize that's been lost in the shuffle. I never celebrated that great promotion. I never celebrated starting my own gym. I never celebrated those big things. And so I encourage you to do that along the way so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And it is also just a powerful thing to pat ourselves on the back. We take so much time to invest in so many other things, and we don't always take time to celebrate the things we do to invest in ourselves. As you celebrate, I really just found it essential to give myself permission to forgive myself for the things that I might have done differently then versus now. One thing I'd like to leave you with that I put on a shirt years ago when I actively started blogging is that my success is not defined by one's acceptance. And I believe when I put this shirt out again, I'm going to add "and understanding," and neither is yours. And I really want you to hear that when I say that. Your success is not defined by someone else's acceptance or understanding. Ladies, this freedom, this path to freedom through resilience is truly our own and can be any way we want it. When I think of trailblazing resilience, not only are you building your own yellow brick road and staying in the fight of life, but those bricks each have a place in building your own very individualized road. I'll share with you how I see that through this model. I see perseverance as the mortar of that yellow brick road that leads us to our path to freedom. Integrity is the first brick that's really ever laid. Consistency as the road adds brick by brick. And then the celebration is as you start to see the road form, what does that look like to you? If I can leave you with anything today, I just want to leave you with the encouragement that no matter what comes your way, there are ways to get through it. There are ways to celebrate it in the end. And we all have things that we will be resilient through. And it may look very different from how I get through that from Jen and anyone else on the call, but that doesn't take away from you still being absolutely amazing and finding your own path to freedom.
Thank you so much, Kandace. What really stands out for me in what you've shared is this place that you were able to get to in terms of inner peace for yourself. Wow. Like when we can get to that place in our life over something where we've experienced a lot of adversity, that is really powerful.
Thank you, Jen. I 100% agree. I think it is a place that many of us don't give ourselves credit for getting to, but I think we should celebrate it more often.
Totally. Celebration all the way. And I appreciate what you said, having that consistency and really having the familiar in your life and anchoring back into the familiar during these times where we really want to be resilient is the glue to the path to freedom. So well put there. Really resonated with me when you shared that. Why don't I just hop in now to the other segment of training? Stop telling stories over and over again that are traumatic to you. Now, I just want to pause there for a sec to say, we have to express our stories. And some of you might be external processors, so you're going to talk about it first and then internalize it. Others, like my partner, are internal processors that process internally and then eventually come and talk to people. And that's great. Like we really need to express ourselves. What the challenge is that happens is that just imagine for a moment that you have someone that comes to you and they have a situation where they have been stressed out or had something change in their life. They faced some adversity that they didn't expect. And you hear their story and you give them empathy and you listen and you really care. And then the next day they come back and they tell you the same thing. And the next day, and then the next week, and the next month, and they're telling 20, 30 people, and they're not going to therapy or going to a coach to deal with it. And every time they tell that story, they are triggering themselves. Their amygdala, that part of the brain that flips its lid and takes us offline to fight or flight, comes into play. And when that happens, it actually is detrimental. So think about that. In terms of myself, I'm very conscious about how much I share my stories and who I share them with so that I don't create that feeling in myself over and over again. And I invite you to consider that for yourself as well. The story I want to share with you today is a story that basically doesn't trigger me anymore, and that's why I can tell you about it. Well, it was 23 years ago I started my business as a consultant, as a marketing strategist. That's where I started out when I went into the business world. And my first client I had was my ideal client. I just couldn't believe that was possible, that the skies had parted and this person showed up in my life. And I supported them in their business for many, many years and saw the growth, and it was great. And then one day, Robert emailed me to let me know that he wouldn't be continuing on with our monthly retainer fee contract. No explanation. I really was, number one, surprised, shocked, and heartbroken because this was a long-term relationship that I'd been in with him in a business capacity, of course. And I was unable to reach out to him for 2 weeks. But when I did, when I was more settled in the situation, I asked him if we could meet for lunch and talk. And he agreed, thankfully. And we sat down. I asked him, like, what's happening? And I found out that he had done the business deal with his general manager, and she was now running the business. I knew that was coming, but I wasn't aware that it was happening so quickly. And she wanted to trailblaze on her own. And I get that. I was very appreciative of understanding that situation. And as a result of that, it helped me to move through my grief and loss around that more quickly. What I'd like to do today is take you through two parts of a four-part process called the flow process. And I'll use examples from the story that I've just told you to guide you through it. But first of all, I invite you to think about a time in your life where you had a change. Now, not something crazy, like emotionally explosive. If you look at it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very little upset and 10 being really fully upset, think about something that's at a 1, 2, or 3. So something that's not really too charged for you as you go through this model today. The first stage of this process is really identifying the change that has happened, like declaring it or owning it and unpacking that. And there's two parts to that. The first part is identifying the facts. So going back to Robert and my situation, the facts were that my retainer relationship, the way I was serving him, ended. It ended suddenly and it was done. The second fact is that impacted my income dramatically because I was getting paid a substantial retainer fee every month. So that's the facts. That's what happened. I'm not bringing emotion into that. So think about what are the facts for you around what that one thing was that happened. And then the second is the feelings. So on the feeling side for me, there was shock, there was sadness, there was anger, there was grief, the whole grief cycle and beyond. And it was intense in the beginning. So identify for you what that is. And if in this moment it's hard to think of an example, just write down the first stage is change, what happened, facts and feelings. And let's go to stage 2. Stage 2 in this process is about acceptance. It's about that letting go. And sometimes that can be hard, and other times it can be a little bit easier. And I'm going to take you through 3 questions to guide you in this process. The first question is, what do you have control over in this situation? Instead of just writing down one thing, write down 3. That way you can become more resourceful. The one thing is I had control over reaching out to him and asking him for lunch. I didn't have control over him saying yes. I had control over asking him when I met with him about what happened so that I could hear that. And I had control over recognizing that I needed to focus on getting another client. Even though I had other clients, I didn't have someone that was sort of my anchor client. So I needed to get on that. So that's what I realized I had control over. What are those 3 things for you? Number 2, what is the learning when you look at those 3 things that you had control over? What is the learning when you see them? For me, the learning from that process was really about my relationship with Robert as in a professional way, is that I wanted to maintain my relationship with him because this situation in the end didn't have a lot to do with me. It had to do with his retirement and the change in the company. What is that learning for you in your particular situation? And lastly, on this, what is most important now? So once you've had the learning and you can reflect on what is important to you after you have gotten to that place. For me, ultimately, what was important to me at that point in time was to start getting out more and connecting with other business owners to, again, be able to provide great service around marketing strategy. And so that became my focus instead of the loss that had taken place. And lastly, we still have a few minutes left to go over this other technique, and I'm super excited to introduce you to this. When you think about freedom, do you think about it as a feeling? You think about freedom as a feeling. Let me give you an example. When I experience something like joy, and I feel that joy, I think back to a time where my daughter and I were down south and we were at a beach and we went parasailing where they hook up the holster to your body and you've got the little parachute on the back and the boat pulls out into the ocean and there you go up into the air. And I remember as I was going up and looking down that the one thing that stood out for me the most in that moment was not what I saw below, but it was the actual quietness. Other than the wind, it was so peaceful. It was almost like silent in a way. And I was blown away by that. And it brought me a lot of joy. So when I think of freedom as a feeling, and I think back to that experience, I can imagine that experience in my mind, and I can take myself right away to that feeling of joy. I can take myself right away to that sense of freedom, like I'm stepping into it. So when you feel happy or joyous or excited or elated or whatever that emotion is for you, I'd like to invite you to think about a time in your own life where you felt that way. So just let that come to you, almost like you're taking a picture of a snapshot in time. And as you do that, just imagine yourself like you're there. You can even look up like you're looking at a movie screen and see yourself in that moment as there and feel that feeling in your body. So inviting you to step into that feeling, whatever that is for you, joy, happiness, excitement, and just be there for a moment. I'm going to count to 10 in my mind. So we're going to pause here while you step in and really feel that feeling. So go ahead and do that now. Imagine that you have a dial in front of you, and while you continue to feel this feeling, you could dial it up in your mind's eye. So you have complete control over the dial, and you can dial up that joy, that happiness, whatever that feeling is for you, and really feel the freedom behind that. So go ahead and do that. Dial it up just the way you like to. And then we'll just go for 10 more seconds feeling that. Now that you're there and you've dialed that up, what does that make possible for you when you feel in that state of freedom? For me, I do that every morning. I just imagine myself in this place and I dial it up and I feel it for up to 2 minutes. So for you, when you feel this feeling, what does that make possible for you? Just ponder that for a moment. And as you ponder that, we'll just wrap up on this part of the training.
For me, I would say what came to mind initially was in reference to starting to promote being a public speaking coach.
Ah, sweet.
I love that you shared, it was actually fairly quiet. I feel like a lot of people would have shared, the noise and maybe their nerves so that you had a sense of calmness was great.
Yeah. So I want to invite all of you here today to just ponder what that biggest takeaway is for you today. From what Kandace has shared with you around perseverance, integrity, consistency, and celebration, the flow process on my end, whatever that is for you. And you can go into the comments below and share that takeaway. Now, the benefit of that is that if you do that, that kind of instills the learning in your own mind. And also, it's a chance for you to celebrate yourself and for others to celebrate. You can bet that Kandace and I will be in the comments later to celebrate with you. Kandace, can you tell everyone how they can stay in touch with you?
Yes, thank you, Jen. Feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. You can add me here under Kandace Johnson. I will note it is with a K and not a C. Make it a little easier for you to find me.
If you're interested to have a one-on-one coaching experience with me to go into a deeper dive into how you can become more resilient in your own life, I will put a link below. So just think about what that is for you today that really stands out that you might like to work on. Kandace, when you are stepping into integrity, can you share a little bit more about how others might consider to do that in their own lives?
Sure. I would say, really just take some time to self-evaluate. I would say find where your place of peace is and really think of who you want to be and be known as a staple, as a stepping stone. As I was prepping for this, really quickly, I'll share one of the things I didn't say on there was, I can think through my claims years of experience as things come up. There's going to be disagreements, customers, things that escalate. But one thing I can hold true to is that my leadership, first level, second level, has always gotten to know who I was at the core. So as some of those things come up, everything still needs to be investigated and looked at, correct? But they knew, what type of person I was, what type of service I provided, and what I really stood for as somebody in the work, in a corporate place of business. So not to say they didn't take those things on as seriously and do their job diligently, but there was a sense of comfort with them understanding, with them, or if I've had something that's happened with teams and have maybe been in HR, there's a certain thing that comes with a level of peace with understanding when other people that are in your community understand, you understand they understand who you are, if that makes sense. That's a little wordy, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, well, that's your lived experience, and that's great to share. And I'd like to go back to what you're saying around celebration. And I'd like to ask all of you that are with us today, you can put a reaction, you can pick a reaction button here as to thinking about something that you have celebrated last. So, for example, you can put a thumbs up if you have celebrated something about yourself in the last week. It's important in our life to celebrate because if we just move on to the next goal, the next thing, if we just keep going and going and going, and we don't slow down to celebrate those moments, then we're not really taking a beat to really step in and appreciate ourselves. And when we can appreciate ourselves, I really do believe that that gives us the gift of having more resilience. Often we shift our thinking to others, as especially as women, and we need to be able to fill our own cup, because when you fill your own cup, you definitely have a capacity to handle more and a larger bandwidth. And that is so important.
You've shared a lot with us in reference to your story and your model, so thank you. But in your own path to freedom, how would you say you've taken time to celebrate along the journey?
I think the little things in life around celebration are the most important. And on a day-to-day basis, often if there's something that I feel excited about or my partner, we'll just do a high five, like really create a physical motion to lock in that moment. And I think it's such a small thing and it seems kind of sporty. I'm not even a sports person, but I just feel that having a physical kinesthetic motion to that, it brings a lot of joy and really locks it in. So that's something that I like to do. What about yourself? How do you like to celebrate?
I love that, Jen. I absolutely love that. I will say, sometimes it's just a favorite song or a quick little dance move, and y'all would have to know me. I have no dance moves, and I cannot carry a tune. But sometimes it's just, something like that. I'm with you, Jen. Just something that brings, for me, I'm big on little things. So a little bit of joy here and there, and have my moment. I got to say, after this is done, being a first LinkedIn audio live with Jen, I'll do a moment and have a little happy dance, to be honest, and probably throw on a favorite song or something. So I'm with you. Definitely take those little, whatever it is, and nothing is too small to celebrate.
That's awesome. Well, before we wrap up today, definitely check the links below so you get access to Kandace's and my information and what we have to offer you. Last shout out to Kandace Johnson, aka Coach K-Joy. Thank you so much for being with us today to share your wisdom.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity to share and also learn so much more about your journey as well.
Thank you. So for all of you that showed up today, we appreciate you. Showing up shows that you are open and willing to learn and step into your power, step into your freedom, and really move forward in the way that you want to now. So we will see you again. Have a great week, everyone.